Good evening, council and staff and anybody who is watching us online. Bring council's attention to Councillor Madeira Voss is joining us online tonight. She's under the weather. So turn that over to our new deputy mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. So we would like to acknowledge that we are meeting here this evening in Kespuutwick, one of the 7 districts of Mi'kma'ki, homeland of the Mi'kmaq people. We acknowledge the treaties of peace and friendship, and we thank the Mi'kmaq people for their generosity in sharing their homeland with us. We are all treaty people.
Thank you. And could I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Actually, I guess that goes to you.
Okay.
Yes, and you should have a motion list in there.
I would like to move that we approve the agenda.
And Councillor Butler seconded that. I would like to ask if council would add to that agenda the call it the non-market housing needs update that was circulated to council a few days ago, and then also today. Normally, this is the type of thing that would come to committee of the whole as an RFA. My reason for wanting to add it to this agenda is because of the urgency of some of the issues, in particular, those people who are living rough in Wolfville, and some of the things that would allow us and staff to do should we approve going ahead with any of those things. So I guess, am I looking for, do I need a motion to put that on the agenda?
I think that would
be
appropriate.
So we approve the agenda and then add to it?
Well, no, we have to add, well, before we approve the agenda, we have to decide what's in the agenda. So,
okay.
So I'm asking if council would add that item to the agenda. That is up to you.
Okay, by
Can I ask
me.
you a question?
Sir.
Is the ask just to create a task force?
Not necessarily that I think we need to have some discussion about that, but that would be something that I would like to do. I would like us to do, but right now it's really to have a discussion about some of the more urgent things, and including some of the things that we could do. If we approved continuing to talk about this, it also allows us to kind of more openly have discussions with residents and organizations in the community who are keen to do something.
Can I have a follow-up question?
Sure.
Do we think this is gonna happen over the holidays? Because our committee of the whole is literally 1 week right after the break, isn't it?
It is. One of the things I didn't want to get into the discussion.
And it doesn't have to, I was just asking if it was like.
There are
like
some,
tonight it's
there's
fine.
at least one thing that we could do almost immediately that I think is critical, that we can't do without kind of council approval of paying some attention to these things. One of them being providing a porta potty by the library. That's those kinds of immediate things, and also starting that discussion. If we wait till the 9th and then we have to wait to go to council, some of those more urgent things that we might be able to get started on now. And again, I don't want to have the discussion now, but that's where I'm kind of heading, Councillor McKay.
Thank you. Okay.
No opposition.
Okay, well, do we need a motion to add that?
I would do one.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so I'll move that we approve an addition to the agenda for a discussion on non-market housing.
And related needs maybe. And is there a seconder for that?
Sure.
Isabel's waving.
Isabel? Your mic is off.
She just.
It's off again. Were you seconding that?
I was, because I didn't see any hands, but you're all very far away anyway, so.
Okay. All right, all in favor of adding that to the agenda, please indicate by saying aye. Aye, so that's, okay. All right, so with that added to the agenda, and we did have a number of other things that were added to the agenda already under new business. I call the question. All those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, that's passed. And the minutes of town council meeting of November 21st, 2023.
I would like to move that we approve the minutes from the town council meeting, November 21, 2023.
A seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Any errors or omissions or additions to those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes as received, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Those are passed. All right, just a few comments from the mayor. I unfortunately didn't see it, but I understand you had a successful Pezzy week.
Sold out 3 times.
Congratulations on that. And also would like to thank staff. I think this happened after the last council meeting for a successful Night of Lights. And I would like to put a word in for permanent installation of the silent dancing or silent disco. I think that would be a great thing for the town to just, you know, let loose every Friday, maybe. I think it was great. So thank you for that. Also wanted to thank staff. I don't know that any of the ones that were directly involved, maybe Alex, who are in the room today for the cleanup. I know that staff were out very early, cutting trees off of places, town trees that had blown over, and to do some work. I understand in Clock Park, I didn't see it, but I heard that many of the little Christmas trees fell over, and I think they're getting put back. Like, you know. Anyways, so thank you to staff for that. And I'd also like to, I know we had a chance to do this informally this afternoon, but I want to just bring on behalf of council, and I will certainly let council speak on their own, but thank you to Director McLean. You are, I think, the only staff that was here when I started, and so my time on council, you have always been there, and I absolutely appreciate how you've guided the town and kept our finances so impeccably well managed. But I also appreciate that at least it was my sense that this really mattered to you. So I wish you all the very best in your retirement, and thank you for just everything. You will be dearly missed. And with that, would any other members of council wish to say anything?
I would just like to add to your.
Councillor, put your hand up. Councillor Palmer.
I'd like to recognize Gary as our best Santa Claus in the valley, for sure. He is spectacular and he loves it.
Excuse. It's okay, Mike. Don't worry. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Councillor McKay.
It's, I just give a shout out to Barb and the team for the soups and sides. That was amazing. I brought it up a few times, but it's been a lot of fun to go and watch everyone partake in some really interesting conversations and share multiple bowls of wonderful soup. And a shout out to the WBDC as we left our cow last few weeks ago. We walked around town, saw Councillor Madeira Voss out walking around that day as well. We had a wonderful day, and we, instead of spending money on a board outing, we bought people's gifts as they came up to the checkouts.
Oh.
So we were into multiple different businesses and just surprise shopped with people and bought their things and had gift cards. And when there wasn't people, we bought gift cards and handed them out on the street. It was a blast. Absolutely wonderful idea from the WBDC in support of the business. It was so much fun. I hope we do it again next year.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, do you want to make any comments, or your light wasn't on?
Oh, I was just leaving it on. Oh, yes. Readiness.
Readiness. All right. It's going to take me a while to stop calling her Deputy Mayor Madeira Voss, but Councillor Madeira Voss, did you want to say anything just before we move on?
No, I echo many of your comments. The Night of Lights was absolutely delightful. I have to say it's the only time since then that I've received comments from friends living further afield who saw me dancing with Mike Butler on our Facebook page. And I thought, wow, that was such a lovely one.
Okay,
But yeah, it was wonderful. I'd also, echo the comments you've made about Mike, Director McLean. I being new to council, I've always found Director McLean's comments so very, very helpful, and appreciated the time that he spent guiding me through some of the processes in a very clear and patient way. And apart from how exceptionally he is at managing those statements, he's also a very, very good teacher and mentor. And so I'm very grateful for the support he's shown me. So I think I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
okay. Thank you. Seeing no other lights, public input. I don't see anybody in the gallery. Is there anybody online? All right, so we will go right into the motions from Committee of the Whole of December 5th. And the first one is a motion for RFD 057 2023, Schedule of Council and Committee Meetings 2024. Somebody like to move that motion?
I can do that. Yeah.
I
I move that council adopt the 2024 council committees of council meeting schedule as presented in RFD 057-2023.
Thank you. And seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, are there any comments or questions of staff or comments? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. And a motion for RFD 064 2023 electronic voting bylaw amendments. Councillor Butler, does your light? Oh, well, you could.
Well, I like
You're on a
to sound
roll.
my own voice, so I move that council give first reading to the amended electronic voting bylaw, chapter 102, as attached to RFD 064-2023.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Deputy Mayor. Any comments or questions from council? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's passed. And RFD 055 2023 video camera pilot results and recommendations. A motion on the floor, please. Councillor Ingham.
I would move that council authorize, my glasses, staff to continue the community video camera pilot with the use of 11 video cameras with a height adjustment to 2 cameras 434 Main Street and 10 Harborside Drive to the end of March 31st, 2025.
Seconder, please. Councillor Butler, any comments or questions of staff? Councillor Ingham, did you have a comment or no? Okay, no problem. I just wanted to check. All those in favor, please indicate. Oh, thank you, Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. The council does not entertain any new video camera locations until a final decision is made at the conclusion of the extended pilot in March 2025.
Thank you, and you're still good. We're still good, okay. All right, still no questions or comments? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's passed. And Councillor McKay, did you want to move this motion?
I would move that council direct the CAO to continue to explore a potential collaborative care initiative with relevant stakeholders over the remainder of the 2023-24 fiscal year and as part of the 24-25 operations plans with recommendations to inform the 25-26 budget process.
Thank you. A seconder, please. Councillor Palmer, any questions? Comments?
I think one of the things that we all
Would you put your mic on, please?
forget we're not. I think that one of the things that really has to come up on this, and the more often you pound it home, is that the provincial stakeholders, because they're the one who has the building that they want to get rid of. And that's going to be key is in your plan there, I think.
Just
ahead,
clarity,
Councillor McKay.
they do not want to get rid of that building. They want to
Well,
potentially add to it, but they.
but it needs to be renovated.
Oh,
How
that's true.
would that, how would let's
Yeah.
use the word renovate.
Yes. I can see the news headline tomorrow.
Yeah.
Any other comments? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye, opposed? That is passed. And RFD 058-2023 citizen appointments to committees of council. Mover, please.
I can move that one. That council approves the council committee appointments as outlined in RFD 062-2023.
Second that, okay. Any comments or questions? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye, opposed? All right, those are passed. That moves us into new business, RFD 066-2023 fire pumper tanker truck purchase, and we did receive a report a day or two ago. The staff want to provide an overview of that. I didn't. Is this your last one? I was,
Yeah. My last official duty is to ask for more money above budget. You've had a chance to have the report in front of you, and we've dealt with the pumper, what is now a pumper tanker, in past reports. At this stage, the tender results have come in, so it's key to get this on order as soon as possible because it is upwards of an 1,100-day delivery, which is, I don't know about everybody else, can sound surprising, but these things, you don't buy them off the lot. It'll be constructed over the next couple of years. Typically, what's happened in the past, members of the fire department, be it the chief or the deputy chiefs, will attend the site down in Florida, I think. And to ensure that it's being done to the specifications and needs that we have up here. So the results are as they are in the report. There's a little bit of additional money to meet the tendered amount. And then the only qualification that I would put on that is there's an indication that the engine specified may not be available by the time the build is proceeding. So that may change the final price. We're dealing with the US, so we may be in an area where exchange could even fall into it. So at this stage, you're approving the purchase at the price quoted, which is fine. Just note that in 3 years' time, as we get closer to it, it could come in at a little less or a little bit more. But at this stage, the dollars are there and we'd fund it from reserves because there'll be sufficient reserves at the time of delivery.
Councillor Palmer, do you have a question?
I do. What are you using for exchange rate on this one, like at this?
On
point?
this one, we just took the quoted price as is, and I think it was in Canadian dollars, so that it is as noted. I just don't know once we get into it, where that'll fall.
I have is this something that we pay for now or pay for whenever it's ready?
I'm trying to remember it's been a while since we've gotten the truck in this manner, so I think there may be some dollars up front, but then towards the end, there'll be the final payment, and obviously the larger chunk of the dollars
Okay.
will be at the tail end of the process.
Somebody like to put that, I guess, Councillor Butler.
Sure. I am anxious to get a new fire pumper tanker truck. Don't joke. I would move that council approve the acquisition of a new E1 pumper tanker at a price of $1,733,238.54 plus HST from Techno FEU. Is that what it is? Techno Foo, resulting in a net cost to town of $1,807,525 after HST rebate. The net purchase price is to be funded by way of fire equipment capital reserves.
Seconder, please, Councillor Ingham. Any other questions of staff? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed? That is carried. And item 6B, RFD 067-2023, grant application for MCGP funding application. Is that you, Erin?
Alex is gonna come up.
Alex.
Speak to that. He looks surprised.
We're going so fast. that you didn't realize.
It's before his calendar.
Oh, comedian on it.
I know. yeah. Spending millions, being funny. Oh, my.
I apologize. I don't have any of the numbers in front of me, but
We have the report.
the ask is essentially to apply for the grant funding opportunity. Someone will have to remind me of the title of the grant funding. I've looked at so many of
Mineral
these.
Capital Growth Program. It's a provincial
Yes.
funding program that
And-
will provide up to 50% of the funding for
Yes.
profitable projects.
So we've identified a few of our projects with the third well and the transmission main upgrade that fit the requirements of the program. So we'd like to put the application in to see if it gets approved. It would fund potentially up to, I believe, $650,000 out of the 1.2 million approximate total of the projects over 3 years.
So we did have to submit an application by December 13th, but part of finalizing the application is having a motion of council. So without that, the application is incomplete.
And these are all projects that are already approved in our capital program.
Bonus. Deputy Mayor, did you want to put the motion on the floor? Or did you have a
Yes,
question?
no, as a member of the Source Water Committee, would be proud to.
I would be proud to hear it.
I would move that council endorse the submission of an application to the Municipal Capital Growth Program for source water supply capacity and transmission improvements.
Right, and a seconder, please, Councillor Butler. Are there any questions of staff or comments? Being none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's passed. You got your motion. Right. That brings us to the item that we just added, and I don't know, I've looked to the CAO if it's, I know Director Lake and his staff are involved in this issue. Would it be appropriate for him to participate in any discussion?
Yeah, I think Deb and Amber both have been involved, so
Okay.
likely could both contribute.
Come on down. So as I mentioned, so council has had this information for some time. And since the workshop on the 22nd of November, and you have the background to why that workshop was held, we have collectively as council, we did receive an email from a local medical professional who urged us to pay attention to this issue. This was a person who was also at the workshop. And subsequent to that, I've done a few things. One is actually to talk to some of the individuals who are living rough and kind of get to know their story. It's been, some of it was surprising. I think that I probably had one image that is not necessarily the true image of people who are unhoused. I talked to one gentleman who knew that Sagan was named after an astrophysicist. So he was in my good books, and mentioned that he had a pension, not a great pension, but an amount of money that probably would cover rent if there were rent. So I asked him what kind of a place he would like to live in, and he said a boarding house. Well, we don't really have those in town where you can just rent a room certainly as an older person. So that has, and also talking to people who I know in my day-to-day, but didn't until this process understand that they were living in a somewhat precarious housing, kind of month to month, sleeping with friends and so on. We hear about students couch surfing, but I hadn't really understood it. And I'm sure I don't understand it very broadly now, but it's certainly an insight that I have had. I also had an opportunity to speak to a woman who is part of the board of the Antigonish Affordable Housing Society that's been around for about a quarter of a century, although only in recent years, and largely due to federal funding have they been able to develop 3 properties for a total of about 29 1, 2, 3-bedroom apartments, and they have another one coming on stream, or that they're working on, that will bring another 17 units. So it's gratifying to know that there are others in our province who are through this and are willing to provide guidance. I know, we all know Alicia Christie. I've had an opportunity to chat with her in this process. I also realized that our staff and Alicia are chatting, and they are of the view, and I certainly feel that this makes sense, that we really should be doing something regionally. I saw Josh Hurdle. I don't know, I saw this in the paper. I don't know whether they passed a motion in Kings, or he was going to bring a motion to allow RVs to operate year round. So the point is, this is really coming to our consciousness in a way that I'm sad to admit was not in my consciousness before. Most of us know Steve Wilsack. He is working with the homeless community in Grand Parade. There have been 2 deaths in the last couple of weeks there. So all of that has made me, I'm grateful that you allowed this to come tonight to our discussion, so we can start to think about what we might do as a town. I understand it's not really municipal business, but I think all municipalities are realizing that this is too important to say not my job. And as I mentioned in the early intro, one of the things that is clear from our staff, it would be helpful to have a porta potty as a bare minimum. That certainly the library, and a shout out to the library staff, they have been absolutely wonderful in their engagement with people who are out and about around the library, and I can't say enough about how appreciative I am of their work. But the library is not open all the time, and washrooms aren't open all the time. So I could go on, but I won't. I wanted to introduce that and maybe get some thoughts from staff. I know Devin and Lindsay have been working hard on this, and Barb as well. That what do you need from us in the short term that would allow us to do any of those emergency things? And then how can we, as a town, council, staff, and community, start to work and address this, because it is a heartbreaking thing to know this is happening in our community.
Thank you, Mayor Donovan. Through you to council. Alicia Christie, who's a great resource, and we have been burning up the phone lines to her. Multiple people have been reaching out. We are incredibly lucky to have her, not only with a good relationship with our town and our staff and our council, but her heart-centered approach is really effective and exactly what's needed during a crisis like this. So one of the things Alicia's really drawn attention to is kind of looking at this from 2 different pieces. So we have the immediate kind of crisis needs. So people who are housing insecure, sleeping rough, all of those different terms. And then we have the longer term strategy, which tends to be more of one along the lines of planning, which is ensuring that, affordable housing, deeply affordable housing, whatever the terminology is, that housing is coming online. So some immediate things, to the mayor's point, a portable toilet. Folks deserve access to proper facilities. And a portable toilet located close to the library would provide that after hours. It would be feasible for us to maintain that, and it is a small piece that we could provide so that people can maintain their dignity, and also keep people safer. Our compliance staff are touching base with folks who are living rough on a regular basis. They've developed relationships on a first name basis with these folks in our community, having conversations with them, and really that very human approach, which is something that we should all be modeling in our behavior. These are vulnerable individuals, and we need to go out of our way to ensure that they have additional supports and that they are making choices every step of the way. So having the compliance team in place means if we are facing horrible weather, dangerously low temperatures, we can be having those conversations. And then the other piece to consider is increasing our communication and our partnerships with the not-for-profits in the region who are doing this work and who are experts in providing emergency shelter and help on the streets to these folks. So that would be something we would be looking at as well.
And this is just to add to the short-term piece. I think we have a number of different staff that are interacting on a daily basis. And I think there's probably some training that's mentioned, and you might have something else to say about that. Just, you brought that up to me earlier.
The Posse Project
Yeah.
is recommended to do training on harm reduction strategies, which could be effective for all of our staff.
I just think it's important to have a bit of the same message going out there. We have a wide variety of folks that are working for the town, doing all different things. And so I think that's really, really important in the short term as well. I've given you a bigger spiel on non-market housing as far as Housing Accelerator, but I think maybe from my perspective anyway, today, some of these more immediate things I think are more pressing at this time. So, and there will be more discussion on these other non-market, planning pieces that we're talking about.
There is a group of individuals in town. Some of them are connected with the faith communities. Some of them are the doctor who wrote to us. We have a number of individuals in our community that coincidentally have a great deal of experience in accessing funding for non-market housing. And so we're very fortunate that we have those people in the community, and they are saying, like, when are we going to meet next? When can we do something? And so tentatively, dates just to hold a room have been identified, either the 3rd of January or the 17th at the Baptist Church as just a place that is open to meet. The Baptist Church, I should have mentioned this in the mayor's comments, will be open for people who want to get turkey dinners. That is a community organization on Christmas Day, and bring it in and get warm. So that's the kind of communication that we can be doing, and just letting people know that there are those opportunities. And the people from Antigonish have expressed a great willingness to come and talk to us. How did they get started? And I said to her, hopefully it wouldn't take us 25 years to get going, and that's when you can learn from people who did struggle for 25 years, and then I guess it was the federal money that really gave them their start. Both the town of Antigonish and the county of Antigonish, they do have a task force. They have a counselor from each of those municipalities, and their role in part has been providing land. She told me that if the town provided the land, then the county was providing an amount of money equal to the value of the land, and vice versa. So Councillor McKay asked if this was a task force. I believe that's something that we should look at. That was not really what I wanted to do tonight. I wanted to say, let's start having these conversations in a way that's comfortable for members of council, and to involve all members of council, but also provide staff with whatever, I don't know the word, direction, authority, so that they can do the things that you've talked about. So your thoughts, council? Councillor McKay?
A couple of questions, if I can ask. Porta potties are not, in my opinion, the best. I mean, it's a solution, but maybe not the best solution, especially when we're looking at storms and snow and all of those things. Things get blown over. I can't imagine it would have even survived last night's wind. We have washrooms in 2 locations that are open to the public at least some of the time. Railtown being one that's relatively close to the library. So I'm curious about those, and the ones at the rec center, if they can be left open, because I would think that would be a much more pleasant experience than a porta potty, but that's a personal. I don't like porta potties, but that's a personal feeling. So I wondered if those things were thought about. First question.
Through the mayor to Councillor McKay, that certainly has been some of the conversation we've had in our management meetings while trying to get a handle on the situation. I think what we wanted to do was to provide folks in those situations with a more private space, if the library space is where people are feeling comfortable and they're choosing to spend time in that location, if we're going to relocate people to get them closer to those other washroom facilities, it's probably a conversation we would need to have with those individuals before we start moving them. Fact is, we want to provide washroom facilities as close to, especially where people are spending those overnight hours, as we can, so they don't have to travel through town. And I think the other part that we've had to really kind of unpack is that we have had some concerns about folks spending more time in some of our washroom facilities. So we want to ensure that washroom facilities are for that purpose. And so by having a portable toilet, it is a little bit of a smaller space and less likely to end up as a shelter. And again, part of the conversations that we're having with folks through Caden, through Marin, would be along the lines of, can we assist you in getting to a shelter?
Councillor Madeira Voss?
Thank you, Mayor Donovan, and I appreciate you putting this item on the agenda. I wanted to say that, or start by saying that I really appreciated the November 22nd workshop, and I wanted to recognize the work that Lindsay did in preparing for that workshop. And it was very, very helpful. The information that in the slides in particular was very clear, and it was very effective in bringing all sorts of people, most of whom probably didn't really know each other, but who had this shared concern for this important issue. And I kind of left thinking about how we might proceed. And I think there are two things that have come up apart from the porta potties. I think those are however we handle that issue, it's a very important thing for us to look at as quickly as possible. But I'm also interested in the comment that Director Lake made about training for staff and making sure that our staff feels comfortable not only approaching people, but explaining, because sometimes they do get called upon to explain to others what's going on. And just so that we all have a level of comfort in talking about this issue in a way that's very sensitive and respectful. So as next step, one of the things I'd be interested in is how can we pursue the training that was referred to, and also arranging for somebody to come to speak to us as you've suggested, Mayor Donovan, because I think looking at some of the challenges, but also the ideas, that others were able to put in place may also be very helpful in how we design a process for moving forward, whether it is as Councillor McKay suggested, a working group or whatever format that may take in the future. I think that having that kind of presentation may help us sort of solidify a strategy maybe for January. Oh, thank you.
Other comments? Councillor McKay?
Yeah, I was happy to hear that the compliance staff does talk to them, and I agree with Isabel or Councillor Madeira Voss on the training of it, that's for sure. I think anything we can provide to the staff to be sensitive to everyone is great. So I was curious about, do we then offer them, people who may need a ride to certain shelters, do we offer that? Do we offer them bus passes? Because those could be things we could offer them like now if they needed to get somewhere. The washroom certainly is something we should, I guess, talk about if everybody wants to do that. And I did see, and I can't find it, but I believe it was an affiliate or something of the Open Arms that had a call for spaces. They had the volunteers that were available to run safe shelters in times of emergency needs. They just needed the space. We have a rec center that we can open up if they have the people to staff it. I would be in favor of doing something like that during the winter time if that was something that was open. Can't find the post, but I believe John Andrew was the person who wrote it. So if we could collaborate with those organizations that are already doing those kinds of things, I would be interested if that was the will of council to do something like that
That's-
as well.
It's a very good thought. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. This is so multi-dimensional. It's like a diamond and there's refractions everywhere that you have to kind of put into your thought process. For years, I did the police reports, and there was one woman who was in there since 2008. She was often reported sleeping in bank lobbies. And sometime later, I found out that her mental illness meant that she was too paranoid to seek out tangible shelter. And that woman is still in our community. It's a very long time. She was housed twice and did not feel comfortable. So I feel like in order to meet people's needs, we have like a series of steps that we have to navigate. And I'm really glad that the town of Kentville was able to hire Alicia Christie on something of a grant federally, because she's looking into all kinds of things. But I somehow feel like we need to be all working together, all the 3 municipalities or 4 municipalities in Kings County, and working with the nonprofits who are kind of taking the leadership role in many ways, and doing a really good job at it. In order to really help people, we have to find out who they are and where they are and what they need. And not everybody's going to be the same. You know, some people might be better in like a tiny home. They have some independence. There's various options, and I can't see staff doing all of that. So as I say, it's good that there is someone who is devoted to finding better ways to do this. Because no question, it needs to be done. Right, thank you.
Counselor Ingham?
Yeah, I just want to build off that, but I just wanted to make a slight correction when you were talking at the beginning. It's Joel Hurdle, that's the counselor in County of Kings.
What did I say?
I think you said John or Josh. Was it Josh? Yeah.
No, I thought I said Joel. I do know him.
Yeah, so anyway,
Yeah.
it was
Joel
Joel.
Hurdle.
It's Joel.
Yeah, I do
So I
know
just wanted
that.
to clarify that for the record. And also like he did put a motion on the floor and it did not pass.
Oh, it
Just,
didn't
yeah,
pass.
it did not pass, no. And also I just wanted to build off Deputy Mayor Elliott. I have to get that in my head. A conversation there. I did listen to Alicia Christie on CBC in the morning, and she brought so many things to my attention that I didn't think about, but I do want to build off that this is not just a Wolfville problem. This is a rural community problem, and how she talked about it. And I just want to lead with Barb when she's talking to Alicia. I think she mentioned that it's really hard to identify how many actual homeless there are in this rural area. But I think she said like over 200. And so I was happy that was brought the attention to it. So just to keep in mind, this is not just a Wolfville problem. And I think we do need to work with the other municipalities, and whatever you can bring back from the work Alicia's doing to council would be appreciated by myself. But yeah, and I also talked to Dr. Toplick for quite a while, and we talked about the needs of she works in mental health. She's a doctor, but she also works in mental health. And we just talked about the need, how you have to treat some of these individually. You can't just lump everybody together and say they're homeless. And so there's so many individual needs. And so we have to look at it from the individual basis and how we can help. And I think the porta potties, as we're talking, we all know it's not a long-term solution and it's not something, but it's cold outside. What can we do right now? But I think this is a good, starting point for us to start talking about it. It's not just in the city anymore. It's now in this whole area. So we just have to keep that in mind. So, yeah.
I know, Devin, from talking to Lindsay, that Alan Howell has approached us about taking pellets. When I went on to the government website, it said you needed, I don't know if you needed or they asked you to take 10 or 15. Pellets are certainly better than tents. I know that at least one of the individuals I talked to many people don't want to go to shelters. It's for a whole variety of reasons. Do you have any sense of whether we would have to take 10 to make that viable?
I think through that specific program, she did have some additional conversation and there is kind of a minimum. Yeah, and a process of sort of rolling that out. I believe Kentville is also, I'm not sure if you spoke with Alicia about that, but I think there is an initiative.
There is.
Potentially
there
on
is.
that there as well.
Some of these people that I've spoken, just want to stay in Wolfville, just want,
Yeah.
for what, you know, they have connections, if only with the library staff, they have
Mhm.
good, they
Yeah.
develop friendships and so on. Councillor McKay asked about a task force, and I know in the Accelerator Fund, if we are successful in getting that, that was one of the opportunities or something we're going to do. I don't know if it was a definite or if it was an opportunity. Is that, and we don't know when or if we will hear about that or be successful. I'm wondering if there's because I think there's an interest on some members of council to certainly in the community to be all hands on deck and try and work on this. And I see it very similar to the Collaborative Health Initiative. What are your thoughts, Devin?
I think with the housing accelerator piece and we've certainly been clear about this, and we tried to say this at Town and Gown the other day when we were presenting, is we didn't really present a whole lot on this immediate homelessness issue. So this is great. And I think the more conversations, the better. I think there's a bit of a, does it need to be a task force or a working group?
Know what the difference is.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of a semantic thing. I think the more people having conversations and getting people into rooms and coming up with solutions, and because I don't know who just said it, but I think a lot of people's eyes have been opened just by stepping in a room and talking with each other. The working group that we'll have, and I hope we do get this funding, will be specific on sort of those initiatives, those specific initiatives. So I think anything we do in the interim is really positive. Yeah.
Councilor McKay and then Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, so for tonight, I was more thinking the short-term things, the long-term things. I think if we wanted to move forward with some progress on those things, we'd come back with a recommendation, like how much staff time do they have to work on those things? Because that's a whole other task force and whole other demanding of time. Not that you're not spending time on housing now, but it's a whole other maybe sector of it. And my fear of always creating those would be if Kentville has their staff person and they're touching base with all of these and the county's doing it and we're doing it, then all they're doing is having meetings and we actually aren't going to accomplish very much perhaps. Or we're going to have different ideas and people will be, you know, if you put 20 people in a room, I'm sure there can be 20 ideas and we'll want to move forward. Maybe not because everyone's going to think this is the best. So how do we do it in a really focused and intentional way? And just because individuals who might be at the library right now they're living in Wolfville now, but they might not be from Wolfville, and people who are from Wolfville might be in Kentville because they might be accessing services there. So I think, you know, having that, you know, homelessness doesn't have any boundaries and borders either. So whatever way we can work together in a collaborative way, I think would be most helpful as opposed to let's just make a task force. But I would leave that to discussions of us, maybe staff coming back with recommendations to tell us what's the best way to do that. It's just my thought.
Okay. I want to come back to that thought, but
Yes.
new point?
Yes, I'll totally agree with you because we have a staff person in Lindsay who's not here, who has a lot of research that she's done and knowledge and passion around this cause. So I'd be really interested to hear from staff some priorities of what we might be thinking about. And I think really, I'm going back to another homeless person who was here for 2 summers, who was engaging with a lot of people, and then he disappeared. And I talked to one of the RCMP officers, and he said, "Well, this fellow has family, and he goes to in the wintertime, he goes and stays with his family." Not so. I ran into him on the sidewalk in Kentville, and he looked great. He always looked great, but he looked especially great. And he said, he said he's living in a motel unit in New Minas. Well, some organization has set that up. I'm sure it wasn't municipal. And I really think that, that the people that we're most concerned about fluidly move between here and Kentville and New Minas, or even Berwick, because of the Evangeline Club. They hop on the bus. So I think we need to be, I think we need to be aware of that regionality and planning with various providers, whether it's a working group or a task force. We can't do it on our own.
Maybe we can ask staff, don't know if we need a motion, but to come back to the January committee of the whole with some suggestions. Just before Aaron talked, we've talked a lot about those people who are truly living on the streets or on the sidewalks. There are people who do work in Wolfville, want to live in Wolfville. They're not quite as fluid. But there's just not that housing, that one bedroom place or studio apartment that is affordable. And these are people that have jobs in Wolfville, people who are, you know, highly educated. But the cost of living in all towns and certainly in this town is just making it really, really rough for those people. And those are the people that do need to be in Wolfville. And I know over time with some of the things we're doing, maybe in 5 or 10 years, but I don't think these people, the level of stress, and I can only imagine if I didn't know that I would for sure have a place to sleep at the end of January that I could afford, it must be very hard to go about the rest of your day-to-day work. So I'm going to ask the CAO, does that make sense to bring something back to the January count?
Yeah, I was just gonna suggest it might be better if it's direct to council, just to give some time, because I know
Okay.
some of the folks working on them, we have vacations coming up and then the holidays, and just want to be able to have the time to put into this report. So what I'm hearing is some of the suggestions that are coming forward for short-term action would be fleshed out a bit in a report, including what type of training opportunities we might look at, as well as looking at regional partnership opportunities, so we can give a recommendation of how we might collaborate better on this initiative. And in the short term, I'm hearing that there seems to be support to at least bring a porta potty in near the library over the holiday break. And then we can obviously revisit that as well when we come back to council, but that would be a good short-term step.
That sounds good. I think it was Councillor Ingham's, it might have been Councillor McKay, I don't know, the rec center, who had that idea? Yeah, if we do get any, I mean, tonight's 10 degrees out there right now, but a few nights ago it was bitterly cold. And maybe some thought can be given to those kinds of, you know, last year, one night it was -40. Never felt that cold before, that we do pay attention to that.
I don't know if that's possible.
I know, but it's to give some consideration, Devin.
I just had a follow-up because when it was too cold last year, I think the Baptist church opened, we had like a warming
did,
center
yes.
too. So will there be,
That was in
like,
the daytime.
yeah,
they
so would there
opened.
be anything like if we do get -40 and, you know, we
I-
have some power, would we open like the Lions Hall in per se? I know
If the
that's.
power goes out, we can open the Lions Hall, but, and I did speak to the Baptist church because I had heard a rumor that Open Arms was, that was gonna partner with them and provide some beds, but apparently insurance doesn't allow that to happen, so, which is another thing. Insurance, yeah. But it is complicated.
And I was gonna try to avoid a little bit of this conversation tonight because it's everybody's speaking with passion and care about everybody. But we're talking a little bit just off the cuff, top of our head. There is, and there was a lawyer in Halifax that was interviewed on CBC or CTV after NSFM conference and the housing conference that occurred just down the street. When you venture into an area of care that's outside of your typical mandate, which this would be, there's a legal liability to meet a standard of care, and everybody's good intentions can inadvertently lead to other issues. And I'm not trying to put water on the ideas, but it's, as a corporate entity, there's the need to think about those things. The idea of transporting people in town vehicles, we're not covered for that. So it's that harsh reality of the business side that, could we get that coverage? Possibly, but we'd have to look into it it is explicitly excluded. So you could inadvertently have an accident where somebody's injured, nobody's covered, the town's not. So I just wrap that in. That's why staff needs to have a look at this a little further than just tonight's conversation. Sorry to jump in on that.
Well, there are two issues. There is the immediate one and concern for people who are literally on the street. There's one of the my neighbor works at Chrysalis House and which is a beautiful brand new building, does really good work. The idea is that women and children, they have 8 weeks and then they get their life together and then they move into a small apartment and some more people can come in, but there's nowhere to move. And so not only are those individuals not able to start getting on with their new life, there are people who are in serious situation who are waiting for a bed to open up at Chrysalis House. And I'm sure it's just one example of those kinds of emergency centers. So if anything in the past 6 months has happened, we are, I think, aware that there are people in our community that are struggling, that town responsibility or not, we are all caring people. We can do something. Yes, of course.
Claire, so I just want some clarity on the approach, just because there's obviously a lot of opinions about this in the community that have been shared with me, certainly. And what I'm hearing is you would like us to look into a compassionate and caring approach to this issue. And I think it's important for our leadership team who have a lot of staff that are interacting with people every day, that again, not just people that are living rough, but people that have opinions about people living rough. And I think, I think it's important for us as people who are directing staff to have that leadership from council. So I think that's really important. I'm glad this came here tonight. The other thing I just want to sort of read back to you is I think there's a willingness here to consider some budget expenditures as part of this approach.
Tell us what it is.
Thank you.
One more question.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Devin, I was looking on a federal website today and it listed the housing initiatives that the federal government had approved. One of them, of course, was the Accelerator Fund, but there was also one around homelessness, which was an equal amount. So I'm thinking maybe that's something we should consider a little longer term, but
There's quite a few in the National Housing Strategy in addition to the Accelerator Fund.
yeah, but they were both 4 billion according to my memory.
Yeah, I think it will be important as we look at recommended next steps that we also look at opportunities to fund those. So we will include that as we bring something back.
All right. Thank you so much, Council, for engaging in that discussion. And thank you, staff, for your willingness to take another look at it. Could I have, if there's nothing else on that, a motion to adjourn to in camera under section 22, I have my reading glasses on, 2CE of the Municipal Government Act to talk about personnel matters and contract negotiations. So thank you, Councillor Palmer. And a seconder to move in camera, please. Councillor Butler, all those in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye.